The engine continues to accelerate and stabilizes at ground idle. Starter motor cycles. A maximum of 3 successive start motoring cycles are permitted, with a 1-minute break between each cycle. In this case, the cumulative total starter operating time limit is 80 seconds. If additional start attempts are required, a delay of 1 hour must be made to allow the starter motor to cool. Thereafter, a further 2 start attempts may be made. In this case, the cumulative total starter operating time limit is 60 seconds. A cooling period of 4 hours is required before the initial cycle can be repeated. An engine start cycle may be continued providing N2 reaches 20% before the total starter operating time is exceeded. Each engine motoring cycle must not exceed 20 seconds duration. Engine start limitations. Maximum EGT for engine ground and flight start is 649 degrees Celsius. An overshoot up to 713 degrees Celsius is possible but shall not exceed 15 seconds. Ground idle is 49 to 54% N2, with FADEC off ground, idle is 49 to 75% N2. Minimum N2 for in-flight start is 6%. Do not restart engines if N2 has indicated below 1% for more than 7 minutes. Flight idle is 59% N2 minimum or 67% N2 minimum in icing conditions. The minimum oil pressure during ground idle is 25 psi. The minimum oil pressure during flight idle is 35 psi. Maximum oil temperature is 133 degrees Celsius. 160 degrees Celsius can be experienced when undergoing power reduction. Recovery of an acceptable oil inlet temperature should occur after 2 minutes of steady-state operation. Relight envelope. Engine start in flight is possible up to 20,000 feet. Airspeed should be established between 185 and 240 knots indicated airspeed, and N2 should be 6%. Relight may be attempted up to 25,000 feet, but the start may not be successful. After the AC bus bars have been powered, the ground ignition switch is set to either A or B as required by airline policy. The ignition systems are normally alternated on a daily off-sector basis. Both engine ignition A on and engine ignition B on annunciators are checked off. The FADEC fault off annunciators should be extinguished. N2 should be 0 and EGT below 350 degrees Celsius for each engine to be started. The electrics panel is checked to ensure that a single AC supply is selected on. All 4 engine NTI switches must be checked on to extend the operation of the automatic surge protection system. On the engine's panel, the start power switch is checked at normal. The Start Master switch is selected on. This will connect the start power source to the start bus, which is confirmed by the white Start Power On annunciator. The Start Select switch is rotated on the first engine to be started, which is normally engine number 4. The engine switch should be pressed and then released. This selection engages the starter motor and ignition circuits, which can be confirmed by checking that the white starter operating and the green engine ignition A or B on annunciators illuminate. Engine rotation is confirmed by checking the N2 gauge. When N2 reaches 10%, the thrust lever trigger is depressed and the thrust lever advanced to the idle position. Within a few seconds, fuel ignition occurs, which is indicated by increasing EGT. Once this increase is observed, a check should be made to ensure that the fan is rotating by checking the N1 gauge. Oil pressure is checked to ensure that it is rising. It is now essential that the N2 and EGT gauges are monitored carefully for any abnormalities until the engine stabilizes at idle. At 40% N2, ignition stops and the engine ignition A or B on annunciators extinguish. The starter motor is also disconnected at 40% N2. However, the starter operating light may remain illuminated for a few seconds. The starter operating annunciator must be out within 10 seconds of reaching ground idle. Once the engine stabilizes at idle, all engine parameters are checked for any abnormalities. These include fuel flow, N2, EGT, N1, oil pressure, and the oil low pressure annunciator. Once a successful start has been achieved, the Start Select switch should be rotated to the next engine and the sequence repeated. Starter operating and engine ignition annunciators must be out before selecting the next engine. Following start of all 4 engines, the Start Power switch is checked at normal, and the Start Select and Start Master switches should be selected off. Start Power On must be checked off to confirm that the start bus is no longer powered. The engine NTI system can now be selected as required. If an engine generator is to be used as the AC power source, N2 must be increased to 60%. This ensures that the generator load does not pull engine speed below idle. In high ambient temperatures or at high altitudes, 65% N2 is recommended. If a FADEC is unserviceable before start, it must be selected off before a start is attempted. There is no automatic fuel scheduling or limiting with FADEC off, so it is important that all engine limitations are monitored carefully. The engine start is carried out as normal, but at 10% N2, the thrust lever should be moved to the intermediate fuel on position. When N2 and EGT stabilize, the thrust lever should be advanced to idle, whilst monitoring EGT carefully. The engine should accelerate to idle between 49 and 75% N2. If AC power on both TRs are not available for starting, DC power may be used. The FADEC must be serviceable and selected on. This procedure is prohibited if the FADEC is off. The batteries are selected on and their voltage checked. External DC power is connected to the aircraft and the voltage checked between 26 and 29 volts. Start power is selected to external DC and Start Master is selected on. Start power on should be lit. When Start Master is selected on, the emergency and essential DC bus bars are connected and all engine instruments are now available. In addition, the panel and console floodlights are powered. The FADEC for the engine to be started is checked on. The Start Select switch is rotated to either engine number 4 or 1. The engine switch is selected to start and the ignition and starter annunciators checked. FADEC fault may illuminate briefly, indicating that automatic EGT over temperature protection is not available. If it does illuminate after selecting start, fuel must not be selected until it has been extinguished for 5 seconds and N2 is above 10%. When N2 reaches 10%, the thrust lever trigger is depressed and the thrust lever advanced to the fuel on position. The engine will accelerate to idle with the thrust lever in the fuel on position because the FADEC is scheduling fuel. When the engine stabilizes at idle, the thrust lever is advanced to the idle position. The bus bars can now be powered from the engine generator, allowing the remaining flight deck safety checks to be carried out. The other engines can be cross-started with AC power now. In-flight engine starts can be carried out with or without FADEC. The relight envelope for in-flight starting is up to 20,000 feet at speeds between 185 and 240 knots. A start may be attempted up to 25,000 feet, but may not be successful. Before starting the engine, rotation of N1 and N2 must be confirmed. A minimum of 6% N2 must be indicated. N2 may be increased if necessary by increasing airspeed. However, a start must not be attempted if N2 has indicated 1% or less for more than 7 minutes because of the danger of engine core seizure due to lack of oil pressure. The relevant thrust lever must be in the fuel off position, and either the generator or